Welcome to the SNIA Experts on Data podcast. Each episode highlights key technologies related to data.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Eric Wright. I'm the host of the SNIA Experts on Data podcast here. I'm the co-founder of GTM Delta, and I'm doing some really cool stuff with this great group today because we are talking about the overall SNIA programs and something that we're doing as a series. And we've had a chance for us to think about not just what is SNIA doing, but why. And the move as we talk about storage-centric and data-centric, and those two things coming together. It's a fantastic opportunity to talk about I kind of call it the pillars of SNIA in some of the working groups and the practice areas. But I got an amazing group of folks who know way more about this to share than I do. And with that, I'm going to ask for a quick rolling introduction, and we'll start with Scott, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll jump on in after that.
Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Shadley. I currently sit on the board of directors of SNIA, as it can be seen by my shirt, and I work for Solidigm as a director of long-term strategy. So I spend a lot of time over the last 6 years now that I've been a part of SNIA as a board member, and probably 2 decades of working within the SNIA infrastructure, if you will, as a member of a lot of the working groups. So very excited to be here and kind of talk about the next level of support and effort for what SNIA is up to. So before we jump into too much more, I'll hand it over to Jason to do a quick intro.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Molgaard. I'm a co-chair of the Computational Storage Technical Work Group at SNIA. That's my evening job. My day job is actually with Solidigm, where I'm a storage solutions architect, working on advanced storage technologies and pathfinding. I'll turn it over to Shyam.
Thanks, Jason. My name is Shyam Iyer. I am the chair for the Smart Data Accelerator Interface Technical Working Group inside of SNIA. I'm also an elected member of SNIA's Technical Council. For my day job, I'm a distinguished engineer at Dell in the office of the CTO, where I'm responsible for looking at futuristic concepts, things that we would want to make products eventually.
Fantastic. So, Scott, I think the best thing for us to do is have you sort of give a quick background on SNIA, even for folks that are brand new to it, and talk about Accelerate and really what this area of work and practice is inside the overall SNIA organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So SNIA is what I would classify as the greatest way for competitors to collaborate without getting in trouble or doing anything like that. So it's a group of companies that have gotten together into an industry organization, and we can sit down and work on some very unique, new, innovative, maintaining all this type of stuff that has to do with the overall market as it relates to what used to be known as storage and networking specifically. But as the world has evolved, we've kind of moved to this concept of a data-centric, because we all know that in order to utilize storage and networking, you have to have something that needs that, and that's called the data. So we've realized that, with this move to the world of AI and everything like that, that people are really more attuned to the concepts of where the data is and what you're doing with the data, and it still applies within the organization and within what SNIA is up to. In this particular session, we're actually talking about one of our 6 new pillars that we've kind of formulated within SNIA, and we call it Accelerator. And so if you couldn't tell already, for those people that do know who SNIA is, we brought in our experts in computational storage and our experts in SDXI, because both of these working efforts that are being done within SNIA are driving ways of accelerating the ability to do something with data as it relates to storage and networking. So with all of that, it's a great opportunity for people who aren't as familiar with SNIA, or people that are and want to know more about exactly what we're up to. We're going to give you a little bit of an overview of these different types of work efforts and things that we're doing within SNIA.
And I think that's interesting too, because looking at the different groups and having worked with SNIA myself, like as both a community member and helping out some of my companies I've worked with in presentations and getting connected. Like you said, Scott, the ability for competitors to be able to collaborate towards innovation. And we've talked with some of the other folks in the working groups already, and some of the other pillars, and like that's theme that really jumps out. Now, while you and Jason may share a daytime email address, Shyam, as somebody else who is coming from a different side of things, how have you found that sort of opportunity to work with, Scott and Jason and some of their folks, but like, what does the SNIA collaboration and innovation opportunity mean to you and your team versus where you would only be internally facing in your thought processes before?
I guess for me, it opened up an opportunity into interacting with a whole bunch of experts from different companies with their different use cases, with their different specialties. I think SNIA is a amalgamation of different experts who deal with data very intrinsically, and so just to have the opportunity to work with such technical talent has been very gratifying. Sometimes when we do research in our own companies, we do it with certain use cases, certain requirements in mind. But to come to an open standard that SNIA fosters, or an open collaborative place that SNIA fosters, you get to know about the different use cases, the different requirements, the different implementation designs that everyone cares about. And then the whole is much better than the individual parts. So a design that comes out of it is actually more sound, more secure, more full-featured than what you would have done if you had just done it within the cocoon of your own company.
And I guess when we think about the idea of accelerate, maybe that's a good chance if you want to jump in on this one, Scott. What does accelerate mean in the context of some of the stuff we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, Accelerate's kind of a fun thing to think about, right? So we've got all this cool stuff in the marketplace, and if you're in the industry, you're used to terms like NVMe. There's a new term, CXL. You've got our friends over at NVIDIA that are having fun with a lot of GPU things. You've got all the storage vendors providing their products, and you've got amazing, companies like Shyam's organization that can collaborate all that together and deliver it to an end customer. And at the end of the day, you, me, and fellow consumers of all of this technology are trying to do things faster by way of acceleration. And so you can kind of think of it as the idea here is putting the gas pedal to technologies that have historically been gatekeepers in the ability to get work done. And that's kind of where we put the focus of a lot of the things that we're doing. So you've got, like, for example, the computational storage work that Jason's driving, and we'll give him a chance to kind of highlight what's kind of unique there and how SNIA is actually driving some unique efforts in regards to that. So I'll hand it over to Jason.
Yeah, sure. So we've been in computational storage. We've worked on a couple of different things that we've made publicly available for the industry to help foster innovation in computational storage. So there's an architecture and programming model that you can freely download from the SNIA webpage, as well as a computational storage API. And both of them can be downloaded. And with those two technologies, it's really enabled everyone to get behind a common set of terminology, a common set of architectures, and a common understanding, which is necessary in this industry. If you're going to have, a technology like computational storage take off, you have to have multiple vendors that are offering competing products. Otherwise, customers are going to shy away. They're going to say it's a sole source, and that's going to be very concerning to them. And we don't want that. We want everybody to go off and create something. We want open standards that allow people to innovate, but yet be aligned. And then that leads to compatibility, and some element of uniformity, so that customers can have confidence that if they buy from vendor A or vendor B, they're going to be able to make something work.
To go a little bit further on that one, Jason, what is the sort of work that in computational storage, we'll start there, in what you're doing with the working group? What does collaboration look like as like activities, and what are sort of the artifacts? You talked about obviously the API and spec and lots of other things that are available. I'm just curious, what are the things that we step away from as a result of this collaboration? It's not just us getting around and spitballing ideas and giving each other a big group hug. There's real legitimate artifacts that have great value to the industry coming out of here.
You're absolutely right. And that's exactly what we have in the form of these documents. And so that collaboration has definitely taken the form of, there is some sitting around and talking. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, everybody's bringing forth their ideas and sharing them and their use cases and how they envision it would work. And there's definitely a spirit of collaboration in terms of we want to make sure that everybody's view is heard and if at all possible, incorporated into the documents that we prepare. That way, we're not turning a blind eye to someone's great idea that maybe happens to be different from ours. We want everyone's unique contributions to be represented and a part of the work that we produce, because they're thinking about it differently than I am, for example, and that's great. And so let's take everybody's ideas, put them all together, and figure out how to make them work. Now, obviously, we can't just have everything, and it could be a little bit difficult to piece together. But if we at least think through ideas, we can find some common ground and say, hey, how about if we do it this way? Would that work? But what about that way? And eventually arrive at an answer or a solution that everyone likes, and at least all the members who are contributing like, and we can then go forward with that and feel good about it. And that, as I mentioned, it is in the form of those two main documents for computational storage at this time. And they're not done, right? They're working documents. We're continuing to evolve them and work on enhancements and clarifications and new ideas as people innovate in computational storage, and we try to fold that in and make that part of the architecture and the API.
It's always an interesting thing that people, even when we look at the IEEE standards, like we call them RFCs as if it's a standard. Like, no, it's called request for comments. It's never done. Right. There's a point at which you kind of mark a 1.0 spec or something that, like, here is this a baseline that we say is some version number. But it is interesting that, this stuff is never done, but the industry catches up along the way because manufacturing and other things that come that are downstream of the work that happens among SNIA and some of the other, partner standards bodies is really driving things that are 2 to 3 years out, which is wild, because I remember I'm seeing now stuff. We're talking about these new crazy ideas in computational storage. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I saw a presentation on this 3 years ago, I saw it pre-COVID, like, yep. The ideas are long in the tooth before the manufacturing begins to actually cut those teeth. It's interesting to see the gap, and as a consumer, it's not obvious, how much work is being done amongst these groups. And Scott, you've been coordinating, leading a lot of this stuff. What have you seen across even the other working groups and how this stuff is all coming together?
Well, see, I think actually I'm going to jump it right over to Shyam, because I think letting him explain how SDXI became part of SNIA is a great example to kind of give you where you're talking about. So I'm going to say, hey, Shyam, give us a quick 101 on where it came from and how it ended up in SNIA, because this is a great story that I've heard from him before, and it deserves to be sold. So.
Thanks, Scott. So let me also kind of take a journey. Before that, let me do a play with words. The smartest thing we did was to call our group a Smart Data Accelerator interface. So we are trying to accelerate data, and that's kind of how it fits into the accelerate pillar. And we're also dealing with acceleration of data. And when we say that, we're talking about a memory-to-memory data movement interface, which also embeds acceleration as it does any of the memory data movement. Now, when some people tell me, okay, but this is a memory data mover, and you're talking about making this a standard in SNIA, then I think the question is, SNIA deeply cares about data and all of its users and end users, the vendors that come together here, deeply care about the data. and how it moves, how it gets accelerated, how it gets transformed. And so a memory data mover standard is of course something that you would want to standardize within SNIA. And because of the experts that know about the kind of use cases, the kind of data flows in which memory data movements are required, and the places where memory data movement needs certain kind of transformations, that's exactly where a standard needs to live on. And so, we had, before we came to SNIA, we had gotten a group of companies to start working on some of these use cases, and we kind of had written a draft about what we wanted to do. But that's when we looked around and where would we want to standardize that, and that's when SNIA rightly so fit in. And once we came into the group, the standard spec started evolving, with not just with the small group of companies, but to everybody who came in with their use cases, their requirements. And that ended up becoming the 1.0 specification that we released in late 2022. So last count, it was about close to 30 members who have been a member of the working group at various times. Almost 20 odd of them have been contributing members. It's almost hitting about 100 members in individual capacities that are one way or the other part of the group. So it kind of shows you that when you have an idea, but you want to work on it on a broader industry space, how can you come to SNIA and actually make it work? So to just give a little bit more about what the actual standard does, it provides a framework or an interface specification for describing how memory to memory data movement needs to happen. It standardizes all the memory structures that are required whenever memory data movement needs to happen. So now implementations can choose how they want to do the data movement more efficiently while conforming to the memory data structures that the standard specifies. That also means that now with the same framework, you can describe new kinds of operation codes like compression, encryption, parity offloads, or whatever your imagination takes you to, and leverage the same software infrastructure that is being built to incorporate the standard. So now you have commonality in software, commonality in terms of the interface, and implementers can innovate on which kind of operations, which kind of acceleration that they want to do whenever users want to do memory-based data movement and acceleration. And we have make sure that the standard is applicable for virtualized use cases, user level use cases, or wherever memory may be available, not just in host memory, but in memory like CXL memory, or memory on storage devices. So the idea is that as the memory market increases, more such data movers may be needed and more such type of implementations would be required. And SNIA is best suited to play a good role in understanding all these use cases, all these requirements, while leveraging the standard that it is continuing to innovate and develop. And
well, you really hit on something that's important there, Shyam, is the idea that standardizing at one layer and then innovating above, rather than spending the effort trying to innovate at the base layer. Like it's, as the oft misattributed, and I don't actually know the real origin, but I'll say it's an African proverb, is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yep. And it's been, I'm sure everybody from Warren Buffett to whoever has always been named as the source of it, but the truth is we've seen it in action. And as an abstraction layer, that's where people are innovating. And I worked in performance management for a long time, and the whole idea is that every abstraction you do, people say like abstractions can accelerate things. Like, no, that's like saying that shampoo is good for your hair. It does a different thing. It's not good for your hair. It cleans it. Abstractions solve a different problem. And invariably, you're always adding delay. You're always adding something, and it's always going to have some type of negative effect. But then they can begin to do work above that abstraction to find those opportunities. And that can be the proprietary work that allows us to all still be in a large, fantastic competitive market where we can all succeed. And most importantly, customers succeed because they win from cross-pollination of ideas. So when someone does come up with a management abstraction that handles multiple storage platforms, it's because we know it's based on a spec that we can depend on, and it's not going to be suddenly shaken up with V1.1 of whatever software they happen to produce. So I'm with you on how valuable this collaboration is. Now, Scott, oh yeah, sorry, Shyam, go ahead again. I cut you off mid-story too because I want to hear about this SDXI because this is definitely one of how it came together.
No, absolutely. Just one more additional point, just to kind of get into, the data mover interface that we are trying to describe is also interconnect independent, which means that as different interconnect or fabric standards continue to get to develop, whether it's PCIe, CXL, as now the latest one is UEC and UA link, the number of fabrics and links and interconnects continue to evolve. SDXI is written in such a way that it is independent of these interconnects. So if you want to protect your investments in software and applications, making use of an accelerator like this, then you want to invest in something that is not just wed to a single interconnect or an interface. And that's kind of what SNIA gets it right, because it hears all these different viewpoints from different folks. It makes sure that it is not doing something very vendor specific or specific to a specific interconnect, and therefore advantages one vendor over the other. And so it kind of makes everybody come together on some things to solve the real problems, while people can go and innovate on things that can't be solved in this manner.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that kind of thing and kind of have Jason jump in here and talk to what he's been up to, because on the computational storage side, it's that same building blocks, everything that we've just been talking about. SNIA set forth, as he's already mentioned, this architecture spec. Well, an architecture isn't necessarily an implementation, and we did that on purpose. And I'll kind of let Jason explain how that architecture has been built upon by a recent announcement from one of our partner organizations as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Scott. And so it is just an architecture, and provides that framework for everybody to go innovate, which was part of the goal. And so one of the partner organizations that Scott's referring to is NVM Express, where they have come out with some specific command sets for computational storage that fit within that architecture. And leverage the architectural concepts that SNIA has developed. And then in addition to that, the API that SNIA has defined has been explicitly crafted to align with that NVM Express implementation, so that the two documents or the two specs that SNIA has created have provided the foundation and the interoperability with NVM Express, which, as many people in the industry know, is kind of the interface of choice today for SSDs and also computational storage drives, as it turns out. That may not be the interface of the future, but the architectural foundation provides that basis for whatever that new interface may be, UA link that Shyam mentioned, for example. And I think that, one of the things that I think is worth considering or keeping in mind is that because of all this collaboration that is enabled through SNIA, Shyam and I have actually gotten together and we've looked at, hey, what if we could combine computational storage and SDXI? And that's exactly what we have been working on as one of our side projects. And the thought being, great, we have the ability to do compute in the drive. SDXI has the ability to do some transformations. We still need to move data. Can we put these two together and have what the capabilities of SDXI provide the data movement and or some of the compute, if you will, from within our computational storage drive? And this work is still, very much in its infancy, but we're continuing to progress on it, and we want, to do this continued collaboration across our two groups, because because this is the Accelerate pillar that we've talked about. It makes sense if we can combine them and put them together to accelerate even further, then we should do that.
Yeah. I feel like the lazy person. My side project was I was happy I got the SNIA podcast logo on a Raspberry Pi screen, and you are like inventing the future of acceleration across two fantastic working groups. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. I would have to jump in and just highlight that because we brought that up, and there's now 6 pillars, if you will, within the organization. It's not like we're siloing either. There is absolutely collaboration across the different pillars. So you've got the Accelerate pillar is talking to people in the management stuff, is talking to people in, everything else in the storage. Security, that kind of stuff. So don't want it to sound like we're siloing it, because I know a lot of major organizations get in these nice silo concepts, but it's such a collaborative organization across the different pillars, across the different working groups. You can just see that if we didn't get these people together in a room, and this person from this company, this person from that company would be off doing, this kind of blinder work, it doesn't help. And so I kind of look at it as SNIA takes the blinders off, and it lets the end customers in too, right? Don't get me wrong. We're companies, we're a vendor. Shyam is a potential consumer of my company's solution, who also delivers to an end customer. All of us can be part of this. We bring in the end customers too. It's not just the vendors. It's not just the product makers. It's the software folks. It's the end consumers that all come in and do that. I mean, we could spend an hour talking with Jason about how many revisions of the architecture spec happened before 1.0, because a new company would join us, a new perspective would show up, and it's like, oh, we hadn't thought of that. So SNIA is an amazing organization for that reason. That's one of the reasons that we put so much effort into it as individuals as ourselves. We kind of called it our night job, right? But we do it because we love it as much as we need to do it.
I want to jump in here a little bit on what Jason talked about, the collaboration between the computational storage and the SDXI group. Funny thing, computational storage is also in the architecture of reducing the data movement, right? And then when you think about what does a data mover need to collaborate with something that is trying to reduce the data movement, turns out to reduce the data movement, you need an efficient data mover that gets the data to the right place where you can compute, right? And this is kind of the clicking that we end up having when we have these open conversations within SNIA between different work groups. And that's when we find complementary things and complementary use cases and architectures that become a lot more elegant than when we started with, right? Yeah.
And what was neat was you brought up the idea of security being a part, and we'll talk about the secure pillar as a separate. We've got a full group that we're going to bring together to talk about some of the work in those areas. And I used to joke, people say, like, why do they have to come up with DevSecOps? Like, we have DevOps. Like, why do you have to explicitly list sec in there? I said, because you explicitly forgot to ask them to join you on the DevOps journey. We've totally blasted by security. And I've seen it even in the time that I've been involved with SNIA, that, as you said, people will be in one working group and realize, like, oh, my company and my team can add more to multiple things, or we need to listen to one team to make a decision in an architecture in another area. And so that ability to be in one place, in one community, and have a common goal of, working towards things that can drive innovation. It's very rare to find such great collaboration where it's not just like one partnership on one product release. Like, we are really talking about stuff that won't even be released for many years potentially to come. And yet you're able to work collaboratively together so that we can probably, it'll be 3 years instead of 8 because of the work that's being done in this group.
They say, don't push us out too far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also would like to kind of bring it around, and in this particular instance, poor Shyam's, overwhelmed with the 2-for-1 kind of thing in this particular instance. But it actually provides us a great opportunity to highlight one of the other aspects of SNIA, in that we have very amazing technical work being done. And I'll give 100% credit to both the guys in my case that are sitting on the lower half of the screen. But we also have an amazing marketing and education and outbound group, which is why I sit on the board, because I'm a marketing guy, and I have Jason who helps sit on the technical council for my company, because we do collaborate on technical work, but we also collaborate on promoting, educating, sharing that information out. And so we have amazing events like the Storage Developer Conference, which is now the SNIA Developer Conference. Again, getting to that data-centric, opening up for people to think bigger than just storage. And we have things like the Persistent Memory Summit that went on for a decade that's become the Compute, Memory, and Storage Summit. We're bringing everything. Guys, come on home, bring it all home. We'll take care of it. We'll get it done. And then we'll make sure everybody knows how to use it, because we're going to promote that on behalf of the technical work. Because you do have a lot of these organizations that are great partners of ours that are very, very technical, and they don't know how to kind of get that information out there. So we even collaborate that way, where we share space at events like the Future of Memory and Storage, right? The rebranded event that's coming up in August. SNIA is sponsoring a platform where several of our vendor, our collaborative organizations are going to come in and be able to present their content, because they don't normally have that wing of their organization. And so that's a great example of yet another reason why SNIA brings so much value to the market.
And it's amazing to me that I had somebody who I'd been working with directly as one of my clients, and I said, "Hey, you should probably come and check out this SDC," and did so. And then actually, they are 100% software, but the work that they were doing, they realized like, oh, people are trying to solve this at a hardware layer, but in fact, what we're doing fits inside what they're doing. And it was able to develop those partnerships by understanding, because again, if we only look with those blinders on, we can only see what we're exposed to. And by taking the blinders off, as you said, Scott, it's such a great way to say like, oh, wow, there are so many fantastic people in this room that we can learn from. And SDC as the large conference, I know we also did a regional one recently in Austin, which was the first of its kind. And hopefully we're going to see more of those sort of more regular regional events, so we don't have to wait, for the annual, although SDC is amazing, but if we can make those regular, I think we'll see a lot more folks that can kind of jump in instead of having to wait for the once in a lifetime, once a year kind of spectacular.
Yeah, I want to jump into what Scott mentioned about the marketing efforts as well. Something I want to highlight is because SNIA has this wonderful marketing arm. It also helps when they go promote the innovation that SNIA is working on. Both Jason's group and my group are part of an award-winning group in the Flash Memory Summit, or now the Future of Memory and Storage Summit. So one of the things I joke to my colleagues within Dell and whoever I meet elsewhere is, if you want to be part of an award-winning group, come talk to us. And this is kind of where, SNIA does this really well. It not just works on these cool things, but also makes sure that people come to know about the cool innovation that is happening within SNIA. So one of the first, demonstrations of an SDXI based technology happened this year at MemCon, and it's not even a SNIA conference, but SNIA had its presence there. I'm pretty sure computational storage has had a lot of presence in other conferences. There is going to be the FMS Summit this year, and then SDC, where we expect some of the working groups to present some of their material, their artifacts, their collateral, and it always makes good. It's good business sense to make sure that the technical talent is working on something that is relevant for the industry, but also that people can see the evolution of the standard and the implementations through these different product demonstrations.
Definitely. And Scott, I got to give kudos. Obviously, you've been somebody who I spotted right away in how you did really lead up a lot of, both, doing the work in keeping people collaborating in person and doing presentations. If you go to the SNIA YouTube site, there's all of the previous presentations are there. Definitely, it's not a reason not to go, but it's a reason to go back and take a look, because we can see this work's being done in the open. And, I guess the question I would ask is, who's the right person? If someone's brand new or thinking like, okay, I've heard of SNIA, I'm seeing this, what's the right profile or persona of somebody that would want to jump in and become a part of Accelerator or even any other part of the SNIA community?
Well, I think just look at the personas you've got here. There's not a persona, if you will, in an organization that's in this space that we don't have an opportunity to engage in some way. It can be anything from being want to be, sadly, like me, the face of the organization, because you see my face way too many times in a lot of those videos. You've got the amazing engineering talent and technical talent that you've got with Jason and Shyam. We've got so many other people in this, association of friends and family that it's pretty straightforward. If you're interested, reach out to any of us. We can all point you in the right direction, help you figure it out. We're going to be having lots of fun in the end of 2024, going into 2025, as we launch a whole new kind of here is SNIA with a new website and a bunch of fun stuff like that. So if you think you might want to be a part of it, just let us know, because we can find a way to make it happen. And the contribution capabilities come from startup, academic, all the way up to large corporations. We can make that whole, any persona in one of those kind of fit into different aspects of what we do.
And you got to come and shake the hands of Shyam and Jason. Say you met two award-winning leaders. But I'll say that is, I say it in jest, but like it is true recognition that we can see where cross collaboration works and where people do get recognized outside of their organization. And that brings a lot back to the organization, because it gives credibility to the fact that your organization committed you to be a part of this. And then we start to look at each other and say like, hey, there's probably more partnership in the field than competition. And especially in this modernized workloads with very different architectures and very different consumption patterns now. This is why Accelerate and why Secure and why all these things are so important, because the patterns of workloads are changing, and thus the way that we host, operate, optimize, and manage those workloads is fundamentally changing. Yep. So it's a great time to see, what's coming and why, and seeing, like I said, computational storage. I remember seeing it the first time thinking, okay, there's 8 places on Earth that can use this. And then realizing that there's 8 places in my town now that could use that, and thousands and hundreds of thousands around the world that are moving towards this stuff. This is not crazy hyperscaler only level technology that you folks are working on. So I'll do a quick round table, because I want to hear what are you excited about in 2024? And I'm going to leave Scott to last, so that he's got the hardest answer to the question. Jason, you're looking ahead and you've probably got a lot of stuff, especially with what you and Shyam have been talking about. What's exciting that you've got coming up?
Well, certainly from computational storage, we're continuing to evolve the architecture and the API, and we have 1.1 that we're going to come out with both of those this year. But I think even beyond that, we were talking about events. There's such a huge interest in AI these days, and I'm anticipating a significant number of AI and how it affects data, how it affects storage at some of these conferences that are coming up. And it'll be really interesting to hear what people are thinking, what they're doing, and how they're going to innovate through this new technology. Shyam, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Jason. We are also looking at version 1.1 of the specification. I mentioned earlier that we had 1.0 come out in 22. We are working on 1.1 right now. That should have some interesting set of features that will be interest for a lot of other people as well. Also, the software ecosystem is growing. SNIA has been, our work group has been focused on a open source project that we plan to come out with that helps the accelerator ecosystem. When we started out, AI was still at its infancy. but we knew we were building an accelerator, and now people are warming up to the idea that an accelerator can be useful for a lot of use cases, including AI. We're excited about that. Just like Jason, there are lots of memory use cases for AI workloads. But also, I'm looking forward to more implementations coming out in the open. And we've had a sample of that earlier this year, but I'm hoping for more of them to start showing up now that we are slowly growing the ecosystem.
I can definitely put some self-deprecating marketing in here, because as somebody who's watched the world become AI washed, and we always joke that if you got a presentation you did last year, just rub some AI on it and you can do it again this year. And it's tough sometimes for people looking at the stuff that's in the industry, and there's lots of like big wow and lots of potential. Again, looking at this, it's like you're talking to people that are actually making this happen and talking about the limitations and getting past those limitations versus the big wow marketing. Bless all those fine folks that are doing that. We need to do that as well. But I always appreciate that just this is reality and potential coming together. It's such a there's no marketing in the discussions that are happening. We know what we're aiming towards, but it's like here are realistic prescriptive ways to achieve those goals so that those software companies can do the big big splash marketing and such.
Yeah.
But with that, Scott, obviously you've got plenty of going on around SNIA in general in your life. What's 2024 look like for you?
I almost look forward to when the AI buzz drops a little bit and then we get back to some of the real work. To your point, you wash something with AI and it becomes something new. It's like we've been doing this for so long. I just look forward to seeing it continue to evolve and realizing that, organizations like SNIA and even some of the other ones are doing work that's going to solve the problem that we're creating ourselves, right? One of the biggest things for me is how are we going to curtail the power problem? Because right now, I don't get me wrong, NVIDIA is an amazing organization, but they're consuming a lot of power today. And there's ways that everything that we've talked about today, let alone the other pillars within SNIA, have ways of helping accelerate that growth without drawing that much more, right? And it's not going to lower sales for NVIDIA. It's not going to create anything. It's just ways of optimizing that whole ecosystem. Hence, like one of our pillars is optimizing the infrastructure. And so that whole thing is really where I see it. It's the sustainability piece of it around how can we keep the growth effective and how can we start looking at it, again, from the data-centric point of view and not just from this is a component, that's a component. What do I need to do with what I actually just gathered? And that's what SNIA has been doing a lot of lately. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and sustainability happens on far more than just Earth Day, which it's come back to. Like I remembered, a couple of years ago when it was sort of a big push of obviously ESG is terribly important in what we're trying to achieve in the world as outcomes, but they're long goals that are not even tangible in many cases. So it's tough for people to look that far ahead. And the bridge, it feels like a bridge too far. So there was this over marketing of, everybody's a sustainability company and every VC was looking for sustainability companies. And then we realized like there's actually sustainability happening every day in the work that is going on here of extending life cycle, reducing wear, better optimization, better acceleration and transport, keeping the data closer to the workload so we're not beating the heck out of things and we're reducing power. It's a win across the board. So
exactly.
Let me tell you, you three are fantastic. It's been a real pleasure to share time. I'll give one more quick shout out if you want to sort of give a nod to where we can find you online. And obviously, everybody wants to meet these fine folks. If you're not already, head on over to SNIA.org, become a member. It's one of the greatest groups to be a part of and contribute to if you can. But if not, just get there to be amongst it. And you're surrounded by fine folks. Scott, I'll let you kick it off and let folks know where they can track you down.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We're all really generic nowadays. First dot, last name at Solidigm. So go ahead and take a look. If you're a fan of the X platform, I'm SM Shadley on that platform. So happy to chat.
Jason?
Yeah, well, so Scott gave you the recipe for my email address, but you can also There is a SNIA address as well. I guess I don't know if I know what it is off the top of my head that you can reach me at, but I think it's on the SNIA website, and it will certainly come to myself and my co-chair. Otherwise, you can look me up on LinkedIn, and I will definitely plan to be at FMS and SDC, and we'll be happy to meet any of you.
Shyam?
Yeah, I guess I have the same recipe. It's first name dot last name Shyam.Iyer and at mycompany.com. And you can hit me up on LinkedIn and any of these conferences where I've been notoriously being seen.
And definitely looking forward to, I love the fact that we could reuse FMS and find a new, this idea of future. And it is fantastic. This is a great group. It's a great community. Again, folks, don't forget to check out our other Experts on Data podcasts that we've already got. We've got lots of other content that are both on the audio side on the podcast as well as on the video side. You can check out the SNIA website. And if you are finding us through that, please give us a little like and a thumbs up. If you're finding us on YouTube, and smash that like button, hit subscribe, whatever the things we're supposed to do as YouTubers. But more importantly, just get involved. And if you have any questions, it's such a great community to be able to post stuff too. And SDC, FMS Summits, all of these are great events. Highly recommended. With that, I'm Eric Wright. Thank you again for watching and listening to the SNIA Experts on Data podcast. And we'll see you all on the next one.
Thank you for listening. For additional information on the material presented in this podcast, be sure and check out our educational library at snia.org/library.